Have you ever heard of a man so proud, so honorable, that he stood watch in silence, through storms, funerals, and the whispers of racism that echoed louder than thunder? Now imagine, after serving his country with distinction and receiving the highest military honor, a judge told him to take it off. Not his uniform, not his boots, but his Medal of Honor. Why? Because of the color of his skin. What happened next? No one in that courtroom saw it coming. And by the time it was over, the judge's gavel would fall for the very last time. This is the story of Staff Sergeant Elijah Booker, a man whose silence spoke louder than any verdict. Washington, D.C. The tomb of the unknown soldier. Rain lashed against the granite slabs like tiny hammers. Lightning streaked the gray sky. Tourists had scattered. Only one man remained on duty. Impeccably dressed, shoulders square, hands at his side like stone pillars. Staff Sergeant Elijah Booker, an African-American tomb guard, one of the few ever chosen, with a face like carved bronze and eyes that didn't flinch. Not even as thunder cracked overhead. He marched in 21 precise steps. Turned. Waited 21 seconds. Marched again. You could smell the clean polish of his rifle, the sharp linen of his uniform, the subtle scent of rain on marble. Every motion was sacred. Behind him, buried in silence, lay the unknown. Before him, history watched. But Elijah's story didn't begin here. Years earlier, in a dusty Alabama town, Elijah was just a quiet boy raised by his grandfather, a World War II veteran who still stood for the anthem even when his legs trembled. Elijah loved order, structure, dignity. But what he loved more was watching the old black and white photo of his grandfather in uniform, knowing that one day, he'd wear his own. He applied to the army at 17. Enlisted on his 18th birthday. Drill sergeants mocked him, not for weakness but for silence. "Elijah, you ever gonna speak?" But he didn't need to. He listened. He learned. And when he was selected for the elite honor guard, the tomb sentinels, even the loudest doubters fell silent. That's how he earned the medal. That's how he stood watch. And that's how he caught the attention of a judge who didn't think people like Elijah deserved to wear the honor. One summer afternoon, Elijah was off duty, attending a local high school's Veterans Day ceremony as a surprise guest. He entered wearing his full dress blues, his Medal of Honor gleaming on his chest. Applause filled the gymnasium. A little boy, maybe 8, whispered to his mom, "Mommy, he's a superhero." But in the crowd sat a man who didn't clap, didn't smile. Judge Raymond Cressfield, a long-time local authority known for his strict rulings and whispered biases. After the ceremony, the judge approached Elijah. "You dishonor that medal wearing it like that," he spat under his breath. "They gave it to you out of pity. I'll see to it that mistake gets corrected." Elijah didn't respond. He simply looked at the man, then turned to sign autographs for children. But 3 weeks later, Elijah received a summons for improper use of military insignia, filed by Judge Cressfield. The room was packed. Veterans, reporters, civilians. The American flag hung proudly behind the judge's bench, but today it felt dimmer. Cressfield leaned forward, adjusting his robe like a king on a crumbling throne. "Mr. Booker, your record shows that you received the Medal of Honor under what I consider politically motivated circumstances. I demand that you remove it, until a full federal review can confirm its legitimacy." Gasps echoed. Elijah stood, his voice finally rising, soft but powerful. "Your Honor," he said, "this medal isn't just mine. It belongs to every man I carried off the field. Every name I can't remember. Every flag I folded and handed to a crying mother." He stepped forward. "And sir, with all due respect, you don't have the authority to strip this honor. That authority belongs to the people I swore to protect." And then, he removed the medal, gently, but not from his chest. He unpinned it, and handed it to a boy sitting quietly in the front row. A boy in a wheelchair, wearing a tiny army cap. the son of Elijah's fallen best friend. "This is yours," Elijah said, kneeling. "You keep it safe until they realize what it means." And the room erupted in applause. What no one knew was that the boy, Malik, was battling a terminal illness. Elijah had been visiting him in the hospital every week for a year, reading to him, saluting with him. That courtroom moment. It wasn't a performance. It was the fulfillment of a promise. A secret act of kindness, made long before any cameras rolled. And that moment went viral. Millions watched as a black tomb guard gave away his nation's highest medal, not out of fear but out of love. The backlash against the judge was swift. Within days, petitions swirled. Media storms brewed. Veterans from every background condemned his ruling. By the end of the week, Judge Cressfield resigned in disgrace. Absolutely. Continuing from where we left off, Elijah didn't gloat. He returned to duty the very next morning, marching silently at the tomb as if nothing had changed. But everything had. Hundreds began showing up to watch his shift. Not just tourists, veterans, kids, even members of Congress. Some held signs. "We see you, Sergeant Booker. True honor needs no approval." One woman, a white widow in her 70s, waited through the rain just to hand him a letter. It read, "My husband died in Korea. No one ever saluted me until I saw your ceremony. You made me feel seen again. Thank you." Elijah never broke his silent protocol. But when he turned, just once, he blinked away a tear. Meanwhile, young Malik clutched the Medal of Honor like treasure. He wore it everywhere, to school, to treatments, even while sleeping. Elijah visited him each week, telling stories of bravery, of loyalty, of brotherhood. One day Malik whispered, "When I grow up, I want to be just like you." Elijah knelt beside him. "You already are," he smiled. But a month later the hospital called. Malik's condition had worsened. They didn't think he'd make it through the night. Elijah arrived in full uniform, not as a soldier, but as a brother. He sat beside the bed, placed the medal on Malik's heart, and whispered, "If you see the unknown soldier, salute him for me. He'll know what it means." Malik passed away that night, still smiling. A few days later, Elijah did something no tomb guard had ever done. He requested to escort Malik's small casket at Arlington, personally. They said it was against protocol, but thousands petitioned. And when Elijah walked the white stone path with that tiny flag-draped box in his arms, the world watched. Not a sound, not even birdsong, just the sound of a soldier's boots on hallowed ground. When he reached the grave, Elijah removed something from his chest. Not a medal, photo of Malik. He tucked it inside the tiny casket, then saluted. It was the most silent, most powerful eulogy ever given. 2 weeks later, Elijah received a package from the White House. Inside, a formal letter signed by the president, and a brand new Medal of Honor, for exceptional valor in duty, in spirit, and in heart, and for showing the nation what true honor looks like. The medal came engraved with a single phrase, "To Elijah Booker, a guard of the living and the lost." But Elijah didn't wear it. He placed it in Malik's old hospital room, now transformed into a memorial space for kids who'd served in spirit. The walls were lined with photos of young patients wearing uniforms, saluting proudly, dreaming loudly. And at the center, a framed photo of Malik beaming, with Elijah's arm around his shoulder. One day, an old man knocked on Elijah's door. He walked with a cane. "He's down. Shame." It was Judge Cressfield. "May I speak?" he asked. Elijah opened the door. "I was wrong," the judge said. "I see now that I was afraid, not of you, but of what it meant for someone like me. To admit someone like you was greater than I could ever be." He handed Elijah a sealed envelope. Inside, check. The judge had donated his entire retirement pension to a scholarship fund, in Malik's name. Tears welled up in his eyes. "Please forgive me," he whispered. Elijah extended his hand. "Only if you help me hand out diplomas at the first ceremony." The two men embraced. 2 lives changed by kindness. Elijah eventually retired, leaving the tomb with his head high, his back straight. But every year on the same day he returned, not in uniform but in quiet reverence, to march beside the tomb for one final round. And always beside him walked a child, a cancer survivor, foster kid, a boy in a wheelchair, each holding a toy rifle, each wearing a mock medal. And Elijah would say the same words. Today we honor the unknown, but also the unseen, the forgotten, and the brave who never got the chance. And somewhere in that crowd, every year, stood a man with a cane and teary eyes. The former judge. Watching. Plotting. So what happened when a judge tried to strip a black tomb guard of his medal? The nation saw the truth. They saw that honor isn't something you wear, it's something you live. That kindness is more powerful than hate. That even the coldest hearts can be changed by a single act of grace. Elijah never sought revenge. He gave away the very thing they tried to take, and somehow he gained even more. So ask yourself, who have you saluted with your kindness lately?